happened, and is being increasingly realized, is that the nature of war has changed. Today, war is very rarely between states, and if they are of short duration. There have been moments like the Iran-Iraq war, where a war would have been prolonged for several years, but largely interstate wars of very, very short duration. The nature of war has changed in the sense that most of the conflicts we see today, as I said, are internal in character and between peoples within states. And it is no longer restricted to any particular continent, but has the potential today of engulfing both the so-called poor South as well as the rich North. If you take some of the recent events about the nature of war, it's also that the nature of the actors in war have changed. Sometimes warlords, whether they are in the United States or in Africa, it's very difficult to contact them. Most warlords do not have fax or telephone numbers. It's difficult to identify who they are, and they inhabit a universe which is very difficult to track down and goes against conventional theory, both in international relations as well as in political science, about actors in conflict situations. The nature of war has changed in that largely we have today, people say 32, 45, most of the kind of wars which has a casualty rate of over 1,000. We have roughly about between 28 to 30. When you take a casualty rate of less than 1,000 a year, you have about 75 small wars which are likely to become big wars. And what we can say is also that we have about 252 minorities at risk at this moment. And we could say that out of these 252 minorities, about 52 minorities are in grave risk of systematic violations. We know also much about the conflict zones. We know about the Russian Federation, the Caucasus region, the Balkans, the Horn of Africa, West Africa, and South Asia. And we also have a new phenomenon amongst these conflicts, which is failed states, which is not that we can discuss an entity called the state. The states are disintegrated, and we have disintegrated states, particularly which led to people like Kaplan quite erroneously talking about the coming anarchy, where he took the example of Sierra Leone and discussed this phenomenon of disintegrating states where there is no specific structure of governance, but different entities, different warlords controlling specific territory, involved in criminal behavior, and where the citizens are passive to this situation. We know a lot about the refugee crisis. We know that by the end of the year 2000, we will have over 100 million refugees. We also know that the nature of war has changed because war is no longer between soldiers, and soldiers are rarely the target of war. It is civilians who are the targets of war. Civilians are the objects of war. 95% of casualties in war today are civilians. If you take the Sudanese conflict, in a recent survey, 3,000 soldiers died in actual combat situations over a span of 10 years, while the civilian casualties of deaths were 300,000, and over a million or more refugees. So this is again another phenomenon. And another phenomenon which is important is that it is not conventional weapons which are the source of war, but small arms, landmines, booby traps, and a whole paraphernalia of weaponry which is difficult to decipher, which is difficult to locate. And we do not know very much about what we call the merchants of death, if you like, who sell to both sides in a conflict, who have a great interest in conflict situations because they know there is big business in conflict situations, and who are very much linked to criminal networks, to drug and other mafia-like organizations which are emerging in conflict situations, whether it is the Caucasus, the Horn of Africa, or the Andean region, etc. So weapons proliferation is a new phenomenon, because conventional theory has argued that the state over historical period had controlled the monopoly of weapons, that the essence of state formation is the control and the handover of weapons from lords, fiefdoms, and others, where there is an obligation of the state to protect the citizen, and this obligation is that the monopoly of violence is by the state. But that monopoly no longer exists. It is possible to obtain weapons very cheaply in the market, and lots of these conflicts are a result of very lethal weapons being available to young people, and it is very easy to start a war in many places. You just have to have a few Kalashnikovs and a few landmines, and you can start a war.